Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I want to share what I think is going to happen in the collectibles market over the next few months and over the next few years. And then after that, I'm going to show you a few collectibles that I've added to my collection. Um, Before we talk about where we're going, just want to do a quick recap on what's happened. So, over the last 4 years, we saw a boom. Going into 2020, we saw a boom in the collectibles market. And in the middle, somewhere in the middle of the last 4 years, between 2022 and 2023, we saw a drop off on all types of collectibles. And that was due in large part to the economy. It was also due in large part to the sentiment around people and people's ability to spend money, and just overall affordability. It was a combination of factors. It wasn't just one factor. It was a lot of things that impacted the amount of disposable income that people felt like they had. And I'm not just talking about, obviously the folks that are in society that have the lowest incomes, or I'm not necessarily talking about the folks that are impoverished. I'm talking about people who had the income or the ability to participate in any form of collectibles, that demographic, right? Because in my opinion, if you're able to buy any type of collectible item, you are in a blessed position, right? You're in a position of having more than, and you are not impoverished. So, for the folks that were in that position to even participate in the collectibles market, they started to pull back because, around 2022, 2023, they felt like their ability to participate was weakening due to rising costs of actual necessities, food, gas, so on and so forth. Well, as many of you know, there's been a massive change in the country, which took place on the 20th, and we have a brand new administration. And I think because of that, the new administration, I think the sentiment around prosperity, the sentiment around people's ability to uh, have more, and to be able to do more, I think that sentiment is growing. We heard the president deliver a speech. I believe either it was today or yesterday in Davos, talking about a lot of the changes that have been made, and a lot of the things that he's done over the past 3 days of just being in office. And a lot of the things that he's done has really kind of removed and reversed a lot of policies and spending and different things that were put into place by the previous administration. And so the market, as a whole, has responded to these changes quite favorably. We've seen a positive response in the stock market. We've seen a positive response in like overall investor sentiment. And I think these positive responses are going to have a trickle down effect in the collectibles market. So I want to just stress that I'm not talking about video games or playing video games or just, the nostalgia of video games. I'm talking about the collectibles market, of which video games is now a part of that collectibles market. If you're a collector, which I am, I'm an avid video game collector. Um, you care about these things, right? For those who collect video games, for those who collect comic books, for those who collect baseball cards, basketball cards, Pokemon cards, right? If you do any type of collecting, this is important for you because it means a few things, right? It means that um, you can expect to see more participation than I think you did before. We had it definitely felt like we were hitting a low point, I think, just in the collecting space, um, just because a lot of people felt like they needed to give it up. We started to see where a lot of people were selling their video game collections because they needed to make ends meet, they needed to pay bills. But when you have policies that are put in place that puts more money back into your pocket to where you're not feeling the crunch as much, or when you have policies put into place that just make everyday living feel more affordable. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen. We don't know. We have to wait and see. But the growing sentiment, right, is that this is what's going to happen over the next few months to years during this administration. And whenever we see things like this happen, there is a trickle down effect, right? And it trickles down from, obviously government to um, the spending of big companies, down to the stock market, down to, prices, down to inflation, and then ultimately down to how much money people think they can spend or how much people think they can participate. And I think that sentiment, you're going to start to see that sentiment grow. Now, how will it impact video game collecting? Um, Here's what I think. I think that now in 2024, because the circumstances aren't the same and because we're not in lockdown, I think people are going to explore more of their options when it comes to collectibles. So I think you're going to see a lot of people continue to dive heavy into Pokemon. I think Pokemon has already caught fire. It's on fire and it's going to stay on fire. Like, I think this is going to be a very hot spring and summer for all things Pokemon. And as long as that continues to be the thing of attention, people are going to continue to gravitate towards that. I think that people, I think that for the most part, speculators are going to continue to forget about video games, particularly retro video games, because they're going to be looking for the hot item. But I think retro video games will slowly begin to make a comeback for collectors. Not just people who want to buy games and play them, but for people who are looking to, spot certain video games and add them to their collection, for people who want to complete certain games, for people who want to get games graded and things like that. I think you're going to see a jump in that. And me, I participate in video games from all angles. I love to play video games, of course. I play a good chunk of my games. I also like to collect video games, of course. And sometimes I'll collect a game that is rare and obscure. I really like rare and obscure games, especially the ones that I've never heard of before. So I also think that it's getting harder to find them. Like, yes, people are selling their collections, but you have people who are out there who are still buying these things up. And it's I think it's becoming less popular to talk about it, um, especially on YouTube. I feel like in um, the gaming community wants, especially like YouTubers. I feel like the gaming community wants anyone who talks about video games in any capacity. They really want you to be a gamer first, which I can respect that. But I think like it feels like every other aspect of gaming, whether it be reselling, collecting, those are almost kind of like secondary and in some cases even frowned upon. But I think that and I think that that's honestly in large part because of what we saw happen over the last 4 years, well, going on 5 years now, which is how the hobby of collecting has become so competitive and has become so commercialized and in a sense industrialized almost, that it's made a lot of people feel like, a lot of just regular casual everyday folks feel like they can no longer participate. And I feel like that's where a lot of the anger and the frustration, I think, for people who have been a part of the gaming community for a while, I feel like that's where a lot of their anger and frustration comes from when it comes to, resellers or even just people who, you know, speculate and go after, rare or expensive games. So for me, what does this mean for me? This doesn't change a lot for me because I'm gonna keep on collecting. But I'm not just going to collect everything. I think that's where a lot of people lose. I think you lose when you try to collect everything. I think you win when you actually curate your collection. It's not about the size of your collection. That's not what's important. It's about the composition of your collection. What's your collection made up of? I honestly, it's going to vary from person to person. It's going to be different for anyone you ask. Um, but as long as the composition, the makeup of your collection is true to you, the games you like, and what you're looking for, then you'll never lose. I don't think you'll ever be frustrated. And I can't stress this enough, but do your research. Figure out what it is you actually like, and then go after that. When you try to go after everything, that's when you're going to be left feeling deflated and frustrated. But I think if you curate your collection, spend more time concentrating on the stuff you want, um, I think you'll be in a good spot. All that being said, I'm going to talk about some games that I've added to my collection and just some games that I've picked up here that I was able to spot. The first is going to be this original copy of The Legend of Zelda. I've always wanted an original copy of The Legend of Zelda, but every copy that I found with this gold cart was just absolutely thrashed. I mean, it was peeling, the gold was peeling, it was just a bad look. This is one of the first copies that I found that was actually in really good condition. Condition matters to me as a collector, and so I went ahead and picked this one up, tested it, it works. Glad to be able to find this one. This one was added to the collection. Next up, Final Fantasy 3. Now, this is an RPG. I'm not the biggest RPG guy. I may not keep this one. I've actually been toying with the idea of actually selling this one or returning this one. But Final Fantasy 3 is another one that I picked up. This one has a lot of rave reviews. I'm not completely and totally against all RPGs. I mean, earlier in the video, I told you guys how I beat Grandia 2, and this is actually an RPG. It's a Dreamcast RPG, but it's an RPG nonetheless. So I will take a chance on some RPGs. This one was one that I snagged. I will probably keep it in the collection for now. Another game that I picked up is this copy of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I've had this game in multiple forms. Obviously, you could play this game if you have the Switch Online. It's on there. I believe if you get the SNES Mini, it's also on there. So there's a myriad of ways that you could play this game. I've always wanted the original cart for the Super Nintendo, and I finally got my hands on a copy. And again, the label is actually pretty good on this one. Not mad at all. So added this one to the collection as well. Another clean pickup. This find I was actually shocked to find. The Adventures of Batman and Robin on the Super Nintendo. This is not one that you see too often, but this was one that I went ahead and snagged up. Got a pretty nice deal on this one. This is a collectible. I think I already have this in my collection. I'm gonna be honest. I think I already have a copy of this. I'm not sure if my copy is in better condition than this one. I have to double check. This may be a condition upgrade, and then I'll sell my other copy. But this was a cool one to snag for sure. And then this is the one that I'm probably the most happy about in being able to find. This is a shoot 'em up on the Nintendo rather. This is a Capcom shoot 'em up, 1943. So I've always been a big fan of those like 1943, 1945, 1941, those shoot 'em up games. This is a top-down shoot 'em up on the NES. You know I love me some shoot 'em ups. So I added this one. The best part is this game is like a $10 game. So you cannot beat that. It's a Capcom, so you know Capcom is going to deliver. You can pick this game up for pennies. Well, $10 isn't pennies, but this is a really cheap one. So I was glad I was able to add this one to the collection. Probably rock out to that this weekend. And then last but not least, found an extremely clean copy, minus the smudge, minus my finger smudging there, but found an extremely clean 2DS The Legend of Zelda edition. So super stoked on this one. This was just a really amazing find. Barely even any scratches. I'm probably the one that put those scratches on the back, but if you look at it, it's in almost like new condition. Like I said, condition matters to me a ton. It matters to me even more than sometimes the item itself. I might pass on a really rare game if it's just in bad condition. But this one was actually in really good condition. This is actually my first 2DS. Never owned one before. I'm not trying to get every Nintendo handheld, but if I do happen to find one that's in really good condition in the wild, I will pick it up. This one, not only was it clean, but it also had the stylus A lot of times these are missing their stylus. This one had the original stylus, which is cool. And I didn't realize that these also play 3DS games as well. So this was just a really cool pickup. Whoa, was glad to add that one to the collection as well. So some really neat finds, some really neat ads. You guys already know how I picked up the complete in box Dreamcast for 90 bucks. So that was a really cool find as well. But I think for me, 2025 is definitely going to be a cool year of collecting. I do have some Switch heat that I'm going to share because, like I said, coming out of January, it will be all about the Switch. And I'm considering doing like a Switch collecting series. Um, there have been so many Switch collecting series. You got the Mission Switch and all that other stuff, but I think I might do a Switch collecting series. I might call it Switch Mode Squad. I don't know. You guys let me know. Put some comments down below. Let me know what you think would be a good name for a Switch collecting series in 2025, or even a Switch 2 collecting series. Maybe call it Switch 2, the Switch. I don't know. I'm being really corny right now, but you guys let me know down in the comments what would be a good name for a Switch collecting series. And let me know what you think about the collectibles market moving forward. Do you think it's going to expand for video games? Do you think people will continue to walk away from video games and walk towards Pokemon and other things? I'm interested to know your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.